Thank you for taking the time to watch this important presentation on the awarding of GCSE, AS, A-Level and vocational grades this summer. As you know, in December of 2020, the Secretary of State for Education announced that exams would not take place. The consultation followed that announcement, and there were nearly 101,000 responses to the consultation. 52% of the respondents were students, which means your voices were heard. However, the outcome of the consultation was largely inconclusive. There were too many responses that had valid points, and so they've come down to the consultation outcomes below. That students will receive grades awarded by and determined by their teachers, that teachers will be able to draw on a range of evidence when determining grades, and that no algorithm will be used. There's a lot of information in these slides. I'll share them with you. They've also produced information on the assessment and evidence that schools need to follow. So teachers need to assess their students' performance based on what's been taught. Teachers can use evidence of a student's performance from throughout the course, from as early as the start of the course. Schools should use a broad range of evidence for each student and for each subject studied. So it is quite complicated, but we're on it. Grades should be determined as late in the academic year as possible, and not confined to a defined window to enable teaching to continue for as long as possible. The difficulty here is that they've also set the centre assessed grade deadline as the 18th of June. That date is a week earlier than the exams would have finished had they gone ahead as scheduled this summer. The next point is that there is no requirement for the assessment of a minimum proportion of content. So if you haven't finished the content in your course, don't worry, you won't be assessed on that. The final point there is that students should continue to work on their non-exam assessments, including project qualifications, coursework, and controlled assessment. Quality assurance is of high importance. Internal quality assurance arrangements will include the consideration of the centre's profile of results in previous years as a guide, and only a guide, to help them check that their judgments are not unduly harsh or lenient. That brings us on to the next point here, because external quality assurance might take place, and there could be both sampling of random work, but also risk-based sampling. So if the school produces evidence or produces results that stand outside of perhaps our previous year's assessment results, the exam board might want to look at that. And this is why it's so important that our evidence base can stand up to that external quality assurance process. The internal quality assurance should include agreement about the approach to assessment and internal standardization arrangements so that all teachers in a centre making judgments in a subject did so in a consistent way. And we are absolutely going to do this for you. When making our decisions, we have carefully considered, most importantly, what's best for our students. We've also considered the guidance from the Department for Education, Ofqual, and the exam boards, and that guidance is coming through still. We considered what other schools and colleges were doing and how a range of assessments could support our learners. We've looked at the available time frame and how we can use that to our best advantage. We've looked at how school closures and remote or online learning might have affected some learners. Really importantly, we've looked at what's fair and what's right in the circumstances, and we've done this from the perspective of the students. We've also considered how our processes will stand up to those external quality assurance processes and moderation. And with that, we've come up with a spring and summer assessment schedule. So students who are taking final year courses, they will undertake a range of assessments between the 15th of March and the 21st of May. No single piece of assessment will be used to determine that centre assessed grade. Each subject will do things slightly differently, although some may do the same. However, we have 4 types of assessments that could be taking place during the dates I've announced above. First of all, we have in-class assessments. They're between 20 and 35 minutes in duration, and as the title says, they'll take place in lessons whilst teaching is also going on around the school. We then have our substantive assessments. These are mock-style papers. These will take place over 14 days, a 3-week period. We'll then have practical assessments for subjects that require them, PE, art, modern foreign languages, for example, and then other non-exam assessments to include coursework, controlled assessment, and there are a couple of others. And so here's some examples of how the different subjects or different faculties might differ in the way that their grade profiles or assessment profiles are developed. So maths will have some substantive assessments, some in-class assessments, and common to all of these is additional data. I'll cover that in the coming slides. For physical education, there is a greater proportion of NEA. Again, that's non-exam based assessments, coursework, controlled assessment. With art, it's all portfolio based and onto A-level and BTEC level 3. So biology, A-level, has a similar profile to maths GCSE, as you can see there. Geography, there's a different proportion of NEA to what the PE one was. And then our BTEC psychology, the coursework will all be teacher assessed, but it will be subject to standards verification. That's external moderation process. So additional data may include exam week 1 data. Now that's way back in 2019 in October, just 6 weeks after you started your courses. That might provide a baseline piece of data. It's all being used in the right way to support you, not to hold you back in any way. We then have formal data from exam week 1 in October 2020. But we're also aware that the exam week in October 2020 was following school closures from the 20th of March right up until, for most of you, we came back in September. The pieces of work that have been assessed by your teachers, for example, essays, homework tasks, in-class and remote tests, end-of-topic tests, mock assessments, projects, presentations, and submitted classwork. Where teachers have evidence of these things, they can use them as additional data, and we are looking for the best of what you can show and what is absolutely representative of your ability. Heads of subject, heads of faculty, and their line managers will agree on the specific information that will be included when calculating a centre assessed grade, and this will be published to students in due course. The timeline that we've agreed on, you can see here. What might seem like a long time between March and June, actually, we don't have a great amount of time. We've got the Easter holidays in there, the May half term, we've got 2 bank holidays. Time is disappearing. But we've got this under control, and we've got to be confident that everything we will do between now and that centre assessed grade deadline on the 18th of June will be done with our students in mind, and we're going to get this right. So from the 15th of March, normal lessons will continue and there will be in-class assessments. Okay, it looks like 3 weeks. It's 2 weeks, 3.5 days. Over the Easter holidays, there'll be some revision available in school. Teachers will be happy to provide revision, I'm sure, a range of different opportunities should you wish to take it up. We return to school on the 20th of April. Okay, there's a professional learning day on the Monday. And from that week there, we will schedule in the practical assessments. There will also be an opportunity for any overflow of practical assessments to take place in the week beginning the 26th of April. GCSE students, you'll sit an additional English paper during that week. That will be the only formal assessment that will take place during that week. Then from the week beginning the 3rd of May, you'll come in on the 4th because that's a May bank holiday. Our substantive assessment window will take place, and I'll publish the schedules for all of these, as you'll see in the coming slides. By the 21st of May, the substantive assessments will be done. If we require catch-up, we'll ask students to come in for those in the week beginning the 24th of May. There's also another practical assessment taking place then. This will be scheduled and students will know about it well in advance. So Year 11 students will have a 2-week half term between the 24th of May. They will then return on the 7th of June, and I'll explain what will happen there soon. And that basically brings us up when you factor in the marking, the internal and the external moderation, and the discussions around centre assessed grades. That process has to take place. That gets us up to the 18th of June with a lot of opportunities for students to be assessed and show us what they can do. So unless previously planned, I've asked that assessment should not take place this week, the week beginning the 8th of March. In-class assessments should be no longer than 35 minutes, no shorter than 20 minutes, although there is some leeway on that. What this does is it allows for students who have extra time to complete those tasks in class. And we as teachers know that between 20 and 35 minutes, we can get some really good assessment out of students. Actually, some of the longer assessments might not provide as good data. The heads of faculty and subject leaders should consider the length and number of substantive assessments required. And what you'll see is that where subjects would normally have had large numbers of exam papers, we've reduced that. And some subject leaders will also reduce the time. The grades must be awarded based on what students have achieved, not what they could have achieved. And this is a really important point for me to make. So what you do now, what you show us now, we can use as evidence. Year 11 will return on the 7th of June, as I said earlier, for transition activities, including bridging courses, employability sessions, social and sporting events. We're hoping to make that a really positive time of the year. So as a summary so far, the assessment schedules will be published to students today, the 9th of March. Topic lists will be published to students by their teachers a minimum of 1 week in advance, and topic lists will be published for every assessment that students do between now and the 21st of May, including any catch-up assessments. We do not want to be trying to catch students out here. We are producing assessments which will stand up to those external moderation processes, but we want our students to be able to access the assessments as we set them. Access arrangements for students will continue as they should do. Students can be told their raw scores or a percentage, but we can't at this stage tell them a grade. That's a directive from Ofqual. They can receive feedback on the assessments, and if you would like a copy of a marked assessment, we can get those copied and give them back to you upon request. The substantive assessments will take place in the school hall because currently that's the best place for them. If we can find out that there are students who might perform better in classrooms, we can look into that as well. Exam boards will publish support materials, and it's likely that some faculties will use these. You may have read about these in the news, but it's also likely that some faculties won't. There is no requirement for schools to use those. And any assessment that's undertaken will form a part of an assessment profile for a student. And I'll reiterate now that no single piece of assessment will be used to determine a centre assessed grade. These are exceptional circumstances, and I would ask for your consideration. The heads of faculty, the subject leaders, the school management, they're working hard to produce procedural documentation that will provide transparency on the processes undertaken to agree both the weighting of assessment tasks and the final assessment grades. Please be patient. We need to get this right. And so our next steps. Teachers will, and already have, produced in-class assessments and the topic list to go with them. They'll give at least 1 week's advance notice for each of those. The teachers will produce materials and topic lists for substantive assessments before the Easter holidays. Okay, so then the school will publish, and today I've published the in-class assessment schedule. The practical assessments and substantive assessments I'd like to publish by or on the 26th of March. Students will have an opportunity to inform the school of any extenuating circumstances or to make requests for special consideration. That will take place before the 21st of May. More information will follow on that in due course. The school published procedural documentation at the earliest possible opportunity. As I said, we're being transparent because we believe that what we're doing is in the best interests of our students. We are, however, awaiting further guidance from the exam boards on a number of key points. There's a lot of information in this evening, and no doubt you will have some questions. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Please ask questions of the students in school, and feel free to reach out in any of the different methods that you have available to you, whether that's class charts or if you'd like to organise a phone call or a meeting. I'm sure that a member of staff can be made available to you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it's been informative. I hope it's been useful. We've got this, and we'll do well. Thank you very much.